Welcome to DTFA Podcast. I'm Kate.
And I'm Elle. And today we'll be wrapping up our House of Flame and Shadow deep dive, talking about what we liked, what we didn't, and our hopes for future Crescent City and ACOTAR books.
And I'm still getting over being sick, so I kind of still sound like my balls haven't dropped, like I'm going through puberty, but I am guzzling tea. I don't even like tea, but I'm drinking tea trying to sound a little bit better.
She may have put a little bit of Robitussin in there too.
I might have I think I might have accidentally made scissor. So I'm just going to be sipping on my scissor.
It's going to be a wild episode.
But I'm sorry if I sound like a little off. But I can't believe that we're at the end of Crescent City, or like the end for now. I'm assuming the next book will be House of Many Waters.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so this episode, we're going to be talking about like what we liked, what we didn't like. We're going to be talking about future Crescent City books, future ACOTAR books, because we're assuming that the next book will be ACOTAR.
Oh, I hope so.
I mean, surely.
I mean, I love Crescent City, but I'm very excited to hear where they're going to go with ACOTAR.
And this has been our live since October, I think, when we started
We've
Earth
been
and
doing
Blood.
This for a minute
Like
now.
we have been, and we're wearing our Crescent City t-shirts.
Oh, yeah.
They are from an Etsy shop called Sparrow and Wild, and she has some really cute, like I especially love yours. Ella's wearing a Jelly Jubilee.
She's so
And it's
cute.
very retro and like the pretty colors.
Look at all my colors.
And we're going to be doing a giveaway with that creator on Instagram that I'll post about probably like once this episode comes out, it'll be up on Instagram, but like some gift cards, because it's not just Crescent City merch.
Yeah.
She has a lot of bookish merch.
Oh my gosh, it's so cute. She's got Throne of Glass and ACOTAR stuff in there too. It was hard to pick just one shirt to show you guys.
Yeah, and then as much as I love Crescent City, and I do, like no matter what comes out of my mouth in this episode, what complaints I have, I loved Crescent City, but I'm also looking forward to expanding our shelf awareness.
Shelf awareness.
Shelf awareness.
We're learning. We're doing great. Next week, we'll kick off our book club episodes with Bride by Allie Hazelwood. Then we'll do a Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen.
And we decided on our name for the book club, the Spicy Girls.
The Spicy Girls. I love the Spice Girls. It's perfect. After our little Spicy Girls book club breather, we'll be doing a deep dive into Throne of Glass.
Bow, 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 bow. I'm so excited about the Throne of Glass.
What just happened?
Sound effects. We don't have the budget.
You were great.
And we're going to start with Throne of Glass. Like there are a lot of opinions online about where to start and then the tandem read, but we're going to be doing Throne of Glass first and then either Assassin's Blade third or fourth. I haven't decided where to put it for like maximum emotional damage.
Oh.
And then we're going to do the tandem read. So,
I have not done that. I haven't done that, and I've never read Assassin's Blade.
I can't believe you haven't read Assassin's
Whenever
Blade.
I started this series, I mean, it was available, but I guess like if you go like on Amazon to like look through the Kindle books, it just starts Throne of Glass.
Right.
I didn't even realize there was a novella before that.
Well, I don't think Assassin's Blade, you're going to give a shit about what happens until you really meet some of the characters.
Yeah. It's easier to know the character more until, like you said, max emotional damage.
Right, exactly.
Emotional damage. Really
and then
get in there.
The tandem read helps you get through one of the books that is important to the story, and I cared about those characters, but that something happens in the previous one that's a bit of a cliffhanger that you start the next book and you're like, I was just flipping through wildly like, you're fucking kidding me. I couldn't believe that it was all focused on one part of the story.
Yeah, we know that SJM is really good at cliffhangers or like leaving you on the edge of your seat, and she literally ends a book and you're like, oh my God, I don't think that character is even mentioned in the next book. Yeah. And you're like, what is happening?
It would be like the next ACOTAR if everything that happened in the caves and with Az having the bonus chapter in Silver Flames and then Azrael wasn't in the next ACOTAR book.
Honestly, it's kind of how I read this most recent Crescent City book, where I was like looking for everything Bryce because I needed to know first.
Yeah.
That other book, I was like, okay, where is she? What's happening?
Exactly.
Nothing. So yeah, I'm excited for the tandem read. But before we get into this week's book rec, sincerely, thank you guys for coming on this journey with us. This has been a lot of fun.
There are so many podcasts and there are so many bookstagrammers, and like I am shocked every single time someone streams or downloads or follows us, because they're like, I sound like I'm like a flight attendant on Southwest. Like you have so many options when flying, but
thank you for
seriously, there are so many. It's like the bookstagram, I don't know, market or whatever is so saturated, but I mean, we have 3,000 followers, and compared to a lot of people, that's nothing. But if you think about standing in a room with 3,000 people,
yeah,
that's I mean that's huge.
We started with 0 followers besides maybe some of our best friends. So we are so grateful to all of you for coming with us.
And for everyone who will, play along with our silly little Instagram. Like I posted that if you could put, and I got this from a Lord of the Rings, if you could put fuck or fucking anywhere in the Massverse, where would you put it? And the comments delivered.
You about to know fuck.
There you are. I've been fucking looking for you. That was one of my favorites.
That was hilarious.
A dangerous time. Fuck time is a great one.
I mean, if you don't recognize that one, you will once we get into Throne of Glass.
This week's book rec comes from another podcast, Talk Fae to Me. We have like this little network of small podcasters that are supporting each other. Of course, it's with any fandom, there's competition, there's assholes. But so far, we really haven't experienced any negativity.
Yeah.
Probably because we don't get into ship wars. Like if we were posting about being Gwynriels or Illyrials or Elucians. Wow. But we here at DT Fae Podcast are why choose. We support everyone.
I love how supportive everybody is.
Yeah.
It's very sweet. It's like very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the book rec. Talk Fae to Me is a podcast hosted by Lauren, Bree, and Maggie. They have some great interviews with authors, by the way. Their book rec Their book rec today is A Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stasia Stark.
Had you read that?
I have.
Okay.
I really like this one.
Here's what they had to say. With the series complete, the 4th book came out on May 30th. It's a great fantasy romance series with adventure, thrill, a little bit of mystery, and as the story progresses through the series, the spice gets a little more prominent. Lorien is our heartthrob, morally gray male character, and Priska, I guess, our main female character, really shows tremendous growth. The series is a dual POV, which makes it really exciting, and we love dual POVs. Description. For years, when I fell asleep, I dreamed of a man with blazing green eyes and a cruel smile. The day I meet him, the ruthless mercenary leaves me for dead. Just hours after humans are born, the gods take what little power we have. In return, they protect our borders from the vicious, merciless Fae. The humans who manage to keep their power are known as the corrupt, and they are burned. When my forbidden power is discovered, I'm forced to flee my tiny village and the life I adore. To survive, I make a desperate bargain with the mercenary who abandoned me at my weakest. Our deal is simple. I'll help him and his mysterious friends sneak into the city, and he'll help me learn to wield this strange, dark power I've always kept hidden. The power that just may be the key to my survival. But the ruthless mercenary is hiding secrets of his own. Secrets that threaten the safety of everyone I love. Secrets that could tear this kingdom, and perhaps even the world, apart.
Man, that sounds exactly like a book that we'd fuck with.
I mean, it has me a morally gray MMC. Like, that could be the description for a lot of books.
I'm listening, though.
But I'm listening, yeah. We like what we like, and that's fine.
We're not sorry. This episode's going to be a little bit looser.
Like us.
Wow.
Like us after Italy. Just kidding.
Now I sound like I'm sick.
Well,
sorry.
you gave this. Okay, here's how I got sick.
Oh, here's where it comes out. Okay.
Ella and her sister and our friend Morgan were just like drinking after each other, and like it was like dominoes. One of them got sick, and then the other one got sick, and I was holding strong because I don't drink after people.
We barely drink after.
But I had to share beds with people, and so as like I got home and I was marked safe, but then I woke up one day and like my throat was a little bit sore. And you know when you wake up with a sore throat and you start chugging water and you're like, oh no. But yeah, it didn't go away.
Look.
And that's how you got me sick.
To be fair, we sat next to each other on trains and planes. We spent a lot of time close. So I can't take all the credit for making you sick.
I mean, you didn't help. You didn't help the situation.
To be fair, I got tanked too. Somebody took me down.
Right.
We were all kind of like, there was a lot of pollen. It was very dry. There was a lot. Italy was great, but we all came back really tired and run down.
I am glad that it happened after Italy and it didn't happen. Like you guys were having to chug Italian.
We were having to go to the pharmacy in Italy. Like, do you guys have any kind of allergy medicine?
But they have like a decent healthcare system, like it's universal. So
they had a lot of, if anybody goes to Italy, a lot of the over-the-counter medications are the same.
Right.
So we were able to get stuff to help with like all the congestion, which is good.
Oh, and then last night we had a Bridgerton party and we watched well, I actually ended up leaving before the last episode.
I can't stop. I stayed till the very end. So I left Sarah's at like 12:30.
Yeah, I was saying I left like almost midnight.
Yeah, the episodes are like an hour long. They
Yeah.
were very long, which was great, but we watched it all in one night.
So looking back, I mean, I liked the season. I like Pollen, but so apparently in the books, it's a time jump. So she's been riding as Whistledown for like 10 years. And it's all she has. She's a spinster, quote unquote. So she's like 28. And so it makes more sense why she's holding on to it so tightly, because she's not even trying to get married. Like that is all she's assuming she'll have for the rest of her life.
Mm-hmm.
The stakes were kind of low on the show, I felt like, because, they can't do the time jump because these actors haven't aged 10 years.
Yeah.
But when, it makes more sense. When you think about that context, I'm like, okay.
It does and it doesn't. Like, she has a chance to have a voice or to have something that's her own, and everybody's trying to take it from her. So I kind of respect that. For those who haven't watched it, it's not really a spoiler. People are beginning to figure out who Whistledown is, or they're really hunting for Whistledown.
Oh, that poor, what's her name?
Cressida.
Oh, poor Cressida.
That's a spoiler, but it's okay. Point is that Penelope doesn't want to give it up, which I don't think she should have to. She created it. She worked hard on it. It's been very close and dear to her. And like, maybe she could have been a little bit less snarky and snappy with some of the things she said, but I don't know. So it comes to a head.
It was annoying to me that his first thought was like, I bet you don't even like my travel blog.
He was such a baby.
I didn't love him.
I liked watching the season overall, but like the way he handled it was like such like pouty, ego,
very pouty with that lip flip,
like whiny male. It just was like, I don't know. They resolved it in the end, but like he was getting on my last nerve. I was like yelling at the screen.
He's not very manly to me. Like Anthony came across very like I was more attracted to him, but of course, obviously the Duke in the first season. Like Anthony I was very attracted.
He was like over the top.
Yeah,
but
he's intense.
I don't mind that he's like a quieter person. I was like, you start with one personality in the beginning of the season, and then we're starting to see who you are now. And I was like trying to like reconcile.
Well, he does that 180 to where it's like, I don't know if you are ever embarrassed of me. That's your we're done. That's your only shot.
Yeah,
we're not coming back from you being embarrassed to be seen with me.
I don't know. Not that it's okay, but I think about how hard I tried to be cool when I was younger. Yes. I mean, we've all had those moments where it's like, I didn't really mean that. I just didn't want people to make fun of me or tease me for something. And like, he wasn't nice about her, but I don't know if it's for the reasons she was thinking it was. And that doesn't make it more or less okay. I just think that it was very childish.
And we've all had that friend that goes traveling once and comes back and is like, everybody should travel at least once in their lives. And you're like, please shut the fuck up.
They're so worldly now, so different.
That was a little side, because we just watched it and did the threesome happen?
Yes.
It did?
Spoiler, there's a threesome.
Oh, we won't say who, but I was into that. And I can't remember, is the next book,
I don't remember which character. Well, that's because this show's not quite following the books.
Right. Well, it really can't because of the timeline and like.
Well, there's two people that are sorted out in this season.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book series, they all have their own books. So.
Well, and I didn't care about that like sub couple.
Yeah.
I was not. They didn't do a good job of selling me that they were in love.
They just had a quieter romance, which is okay.
No.
Okay. It just wasn't like a big romance story romance.
Right.
But that's okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Like we said, this episode is going
to
be a little looser.
But we're going to start with like a broad thumbs up, thumbs down for House of Flame and Shadow.
Because, I mean, now I'm sounding like Colin. I'm like, when we were in Rome.
Because we were just in Italy.
We learned that the whole, when you watch Gladiator and it's like they put up their thumb. That's so embarrassing. I have like 4 nails missing. They're just popping off. I don't know how to take them off. I guess
Kate's new to manicures.
It was my first time getting, are they acrylics, I guess?
Yeah.
First time getting tips. And now they're just popping off left and right. So I'm missing half of them.
She needs to go get them taken off.
I know.
Side story.
Well, the ones that are on there are like God, I look ratchet. So the whole like thumbs up and then, thumb sideways, then going up and down for, telling the gladiators to kill the person or not is not historically accurate, apparently. Which, I mean, what else is Russell Crowe lying to us about? But for the drama, I'm going to do like thumb sideways and then like halfway. Like I can't give a full thumbs up for House of Flame and Shadow, but it's like halfway.
I think I'll give it a thumbs up. I know I had some complaints, but there was still a lot of like really interesting information, and I was very interested in the world. I wouldn't say that I'm like thumbs up for specific characters, but as a whole, I enjoyed reading it.
Right.
And it also like gives me more information to ponder for other series. So
well, and that's pretty indicative. Is that a word? Indicative
Yes.
of like the fandom, because the fandom is pretty split on Flame and Shadow. I've seen a lot of negative feedback, especially right after it was released. Like the people who stayed up all night reading it. Because before we even, I mean, I was, you know, on early chapters and I was already seeing negative reviews and I was like, Jesus Christ. But a lot of the criticism, I mean, it's valid, you know, like it's not, I hate when people, you know, like when a director or an author, someone becomes really big and it's like the fandom becomes so protective that you're not allowed to say anything negative about them.
Yeah, you got to be honest about what you're reading.
I would have loved to have seen more ACOTAR characters. Like I miss ACOTAR characters more than I miss any actual living person, but it wasn't an ACOTAR book. It was a Crescent City book. So ultimately, I do think that the cameos worked here.
I mean, right. It wasn't a full crossover, but I can see why people would be disappointed at who we did and did not see.
We somehow, it's like we spent too much time and not enough time in Prythian.
Well, it's like you were not quite in Prythian. You were almost there, but you're still under it.
Yeah,
so it's like you almost got in the door, but you really just got like a window.
Exactly. It's like when so that one time I had a layover in Paris and I'd never been to Paris. I was in the airport. Was I actually in Paris? So like she was in Prythian. She was in the caves the whole time. She didn't get to see any of the courts and she didn't get to meet all these other characters. So
she has no idea what the culture is. Yeah.
Right. And I'm very curious where we're going to pick up for the next ACOTAR book.
Yeah. I know we've discussed this before. Are we going to start with Bryce's arrival and find out what was going on in Prythian outside of the caves?
Maybe Azriel's absence is giving Lucy and Elain some alone time together. Like, I mean, I could actually see that, you know? He's busy doing his hot girl walk. He
was so, bless his heart, he was like giving her space and trying so hard to give her space that like I think he like took himself out of the picture too far.
Lucian?
I don't know. Yeah. But also like Elain is not accepting, but she's becoming like doing better at understanding who she is now. And like, I guess accepting is the word. Yeah. Accepting more of it. So maybe there's more of a chance for Lucian.
I hope so. I don't know. I'm why choose?
I mean, like
I like both. I like Lucian and I like Azriel.
Well, I would say I have to assume the next ACOTAR book will be Elain because they focused on all the sisters, but at the same time, they haven't really focused that much on Elain.
No.
Like even when Nesta wasn't the book, like we still heard all about Nesta.
I think one of my main critiques of Elain is she doesn't give main character energy, but that's not her fault because she hasn't been a main character yet. I felt that way about Nesta before I got to know her in Silver Flames. So I do think that we're going to get an Elain book and I'm going to connect more with her once I like hear her inner thoughts and like what she's actually thinking and feeling.
Yeah. But they haven't given us enough.
No, not enough of Elain. Well, so she'll be in the next book, but I also think Az will be in the next book because he got the bonus chapter in Silver Flames. He got the most screen time in House of Flame and Shadow other than Nesta. So there's just no way that all of that isn't leading into his book.
I definitely see Az more than I see Elain. I think Elain's love story is going to be quieter. The difference is also that Feyre, and whether Feyre really fits the warrior the same way Nesta does, they're both more like fighting warrior type females. So they've had these big dramatic storylines, and Elain probably won't just because that's not the type of personality she is, which is not a bad thing at all. I just feel like however she's going to build up to it, it's not going to be what we expect.
You know, it's kind of like what we were talking about, the like side romance in Bridgerton.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a quieter romance, which doesn't make it a lesser romance.
She was kind of like Elain. You know, she was more interested in her music. She didn't care about all the basics. That actress
would actually be so good as Elain.
She was beautiful.
She is gorgeous.
We're talking about, what was her name? Francesca?
Yes,
the character, Francesca.
Right. That actress is, she has to be a model or something, right? She's model pretty.
Yeah. I don't know if she is, but she should be.
But to be honest, after reading the bonus chapter in House of Flame and Shadow, I'm going into the next ACOTAR kind of side-eyeing Rhys.
I think you should. I didn't appreciate a lot of that.
Yeah, it kind of turned me off of him. Yeah. And I don't know. I hate that because I love Rhys.
But you know what? This is kind of a problem whenever there's a long ongoing series, because you'll grow to love it. It'll be great. And then like once it becomes popular, the author will try to keep going, but they're not always good at being true to the characters. Right. And this is not just like about Sarah. Like there's another series I think of that's sort of Truth. And I just drew a blank on the author's name, which is also a fantasy series, but it's not a big romance fantasy series. So I haven't like mentioned it, but like
Brandon Sanderson?
No.
Oh, this is the one that I have that physical copy of your sister's.
I can literally visually see the book, but I forgot the author's name. I could look it up. It's fine. I could recommend it to you guys. It's an amazing series. I love it, but it's fantasy, but it's not like big romance, but it's anyway, like the first 11 books, love them. The last like 3 or 4, butcher all the characters.
Right.
Like character assassination.
Yes, exactly. But I do think also that Nesta will be the main character in the next book. Like I think that we're going to be like slowly not introducing, but like getting more Elain and especially more Az, but there's just too much going on with Nesta for her POV to not be in it, especially she has the mask, she has the star sword now. There are all these like queen breadcrumbs that Sarah's been feeding us. There's just something big is going to happen.
Well, she had an important role in Crescent City. And again, like Az and Nesta being in Crescent City, it really feels like they're going to be much more important in the next ACOTAR book because she's giving us more of them. So hopefully. And Sarah did feed us in Flame and Shadow. We finally got a confirmed Throne of Glass connection via Lydia's fire magic and Brannon, and the Underking's word connection in the death scene.
We were feral for anything Throne of Glass, and it would have been cool. Feral. His eyes darkened.
Feral.
Our eyes darkened whenever we were reading. I was like, Brannon.
His lip peeled back.
It would have been cool to have a little more, but also don't be greedy. Like she didn't have to give us anything. I mean, she didn't have to confirm anything, Throne of Glass, but to have, the Underking's speech to Ethan and to have the Brannon namesake, that's all. Those are things we've been begging for. So I'm just like, thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
You're right. I have too many expectations. I am grateful. Lydia actually ended up being the highlight of the book for me.
Oh, Lydia carried the book. I loved her character development from when we first met her as the Hind. There's a little bit of a Throne of Glass parallel with another character we'll meet. And it's just the way that we think about the first time we're introduced to her, then think about the end of her wedding scene. That character development is insane.
Well, she already had so much development. We just got a chance to see it, which is amazing. Anyway, I was about to go down a whole parallel.
Yeah, we won't give Throne of Glass spoilers. I mean, I feel like we kind of did when we were doing early episodes, but we're moving forward, we won't.
Right. I say we have at times, but not today. So
well, you couldn't really, a lot of our the first 2 books we did it when Flame and Shadow wasn't out yet, so there was a lot of speculation. So we were like, maybe this connects to this, or maybe this is related to this. So of course we had to talk about Throne of Glass stuff, but yeah.
But also I think some of the spoilers we have given are so much later in Throne of Glass that when you start reading it, you won't have any idea we're talking about some of those connections. Because
you don't know Buzzard.
They aren't directly obvious. It's okay.
Yeah.
At least no one lost their power in Crescent City.
They
actually got more.
Seriously. I hate that trope, and that's another spoiler. I won't say who. But that is something that seems to happen to a lot of female characters in SJM books. They
have to sacrifice something to move forward.
Right. We just saw it in Silver Flames with Nesta. And as much as I loved Bryce in Earth and Blood, her character development, like we were saying a minute ago, a little bit more of an undevelopment or a character assassination for me.
I honestly, and we will probably get into this more later, reading Crescent City, I feel like it probably should have been 2 books.
Yes.
Because we complained about this multiple times, but things suddenly just would happen. There's no explanation. There's no buildup. In other series, our characters had to go on a long journey to get from point A to finally having the power.
The journey was not journeying.
No. And so that kind of did a disservice to Bryce's character because suddenly she's just doing things. And I'm like, she hasn't had the emotional or the strength. Nothing has happened to her to help her develop where she should, what level she should be on now.
When did she learn how to do this? When did she set up this secret plan.
She suddenly just had power. She suddenly had expectations, and she suddenly just knew how to do things.
Yeah. I mean, the best example is putting the fallen inside of the mech suits and bringing them back and their wings flapping out the window. You're like,
I was thinking,
was that intuitive?
Of like her in the caves, just like knowing where to put her magic all of a sudden and doing things with power that she didn't have before. I'm like, how'd you just know to do that?
We were introduced to her, and I know that it was more of like a persona that she just let people believe as like this party girl. And now she's just like looking at carvings and slams her hand down and boom.
Well, and I know that a lot happened back to back. So I know we have to get through it because we don't know what's going on. But like, if there had been more explanation about Bryce's emotional development for some of these things, or like even the way she's quickly intuiting how to use this magic, she suddenly I don't know.
When did she learn all of this? Because even if you compare it to Feyre in ACOTAR, she like spent a lot of the book not knowing the answer to the riddle. I feel like if this had happened in Flame and Shadow, Bryce would have been like, oh, it's love.
Yeah, a lot of horrible shit had happened to her under the mountain.
So there was so much more growth, and there was a journey. We missed out on Bryce's journey, and a lot of that is probably because it was such a short amount of time. It feels like it was a long time because we waited so long for the book, but it actually wasn't like a long time frame.
Everything that happened within a week span, which I understand it's war. Everything's popping off all at once. It's wild. But because of that, we missed the journey. It's just, I don't know. It could have been 2 books. We could have gotten like more detail on certain things. And I would have been really interested in learning more.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to remember that everything happened in that short period of time. Feels like it should have been longer. But for the characters, I mean, we waited like years, but for them, it was like, what, 2 years from the very beginning with Danica's death and then the jump forward to the end of the book?
Earth and Blood is 1533 VE, so Vanir era. Danica dies. There's the time jump, and then everything from part 2, Earth and Blood, through the end of Flame and Shadow, that's 1535. So Flame and Shadow is all in a week. So like this entire book series was, 2 years, but there was also a big time jump.
Well, and we kind of just mentioned it, but like, once Danica died, I think there was a lot of development for Bryce as she had to like go through not just like dealing with Danica's death and the pack's death, but like sorting through her feelings and moving forward. Like there was a lot she processed. And then all of this all at once. Again, I'm assuming she processed and learned things, but because it happened so rapid pace, I need to know more.
Well, and it would help me to know more. Such a big part of pulling her out of that depressive state. But then that's another thing we'll get to. Their romance just kind of fizzled for me.
Well, if she didn't have time to fully process everything's happening, because the whole book happened in like a week, it was unfair to Hunt. With all the things he's been through, she suddenly has all this power, hasn't processed a lot of it. She's kind of emotionally stunted because of it.
Right.
She needs time to process all, and he's being traumatized over again, and then she's not supporting him. There were certain things that
a week.
I know it all happened. They're doing the best they can, but I do wish it had been written a little differently so that we had more time for her development, and then there could have been more support for Hunt, because it is like for their romance, it doesn't feel even, or like there's not support for him, which is what you're saying. It feels like it fizzled because they can't suddenly be okay. He has a right to be upset with her for not supporting his trauma and doing more.
Well, and when I think about, she has these lines where she's like, I'm not the same person I was when this when I think it's when she's talking to Rigelus, and it's
literally
like
a week ago.
It was a week ago. Like, I don't care what happens to you in a week. That is not enough time to be a completely different person.
Well, and too much has happened for her to have time to process it. So I'm like, come on.
Right.
That's a little wild.
Well, and there was the whole Bryce was outraged by Thea, Selene, and Helena, but then she turned around and released an ancient evil, Vesperus, into another world, like Cauldron Meat Kettle,
Well, she literally, like, from what we saw, she didn't even care that bad. She was like, I'm doing it.
Right. And
that seems okay.
Bryce isn't like Elain or Feyre to me in that I don't think that she's struggled enough, and that's probably not fair, but how could she understand the guilt and the shame and like how scared Hunt was to lose everything, because it's never been this high stakes for her.
I mean, she's been through some tough times, but the weight of the decision, she doesn't feel the weight of the decision she's making.
Well, and also Hunt felt underutilized as an asset in a war. Like, he's not my favorite MMC, but my man, he led a rebellion. He's the Umbra fucking Mortis, but he's mostly chasing Bryce around, being surprised by plans she didn't share. Like, he's
been a warrior for 200 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Rowan's been a warrior and continues training. And even though Elain doesn't always share plans with him, like, I don't know, it just feels like a much more mature understanding of each other.
Right.
And I don't feel that like Hunt's getting that from Bryce.
Yeah.
I mean, she needed him on board with whatever she was doing, but she was just kind of dismissive of everything he had to offer, which is disappointing.
Right. But also, thanks, Sarah, for the Shahar cameo. I fucking hated it.
I mean,
it was like a fever dream when I was reading about all of a sudden we're in space, mech suits, Shahar, and missiles and black holes. I just, what are we doing?
I guess it was a nice like bit of closure, but yeah, since we don't really understand.
I didn't need that closure. I never met Shahar. This is a weird time for me to be meeting her.
I know, but we don't even understand how they're in the mech suits. So I was like, I don't even know how to process this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm already confused as it is. So like, okay.
But let's get back to Danica.
Bitch was busy.
As much of a warm and fuzzy moment their reunion was at the end, finding out her soul wasn't destroyed or whatever, it kind of cheapened that story for me. Like, so much of Bryce's journey, even if it was a very short journey, it was grieving her best friend first, like for her first death, and then for the death of her soul. That was just such a big part of Bryce's story. And now it's like, actually, she's fine.
I mean, it kind of takes away from the sacrifice that Bryce thought she was making.
Right, it does.
When she thought she was, like, was that the end of the first book? Where she went
when she's making the drop.
Yeah. Well, she went to the Underking and
traded her soul.
Yeah, for Danica. So, like, that's a huge sacrifice to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, Danica dying, sacrificing herself for Bryce to make the drop was also really big and dramatic.
So Danica became more of a plot device than a character. Like, anything that needed to be explained, it was like, oh, Danica did this, or Danica was researching this, or like, oh yeah, Danica and Lydia met up. And then Danica was researching lineages, and
she was tying it all together, so somebody did.
But she was also partying with Bryce, and like, they were so close that it feels like at least the line about Bryce being, well, now I understand why why Danica kept disappearing. Like, how is it possible that she did all of this?
When did she yeah, I guess when she would pretend to be patrolling with the Ox.
But she was patrolling because she was also like stealing the horn. Yeah. And her mom would have been on her ass if she were like not showing up for the Ox.
I mean, she must have never slept to be doing all of this. There's there's not
having
enough
a
time.
Secret mate.
She had a mate for like what, 2 years?
Yeah.
When did you have time to go see him? What?
And I am happy that Baxian is, he's going to get to see his mate on the other side. In theory, I don't totally understand the other side, but I love a happy ending, but everything was too convenient.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit too convenient that it all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
It's also interesting that no one died in the final battle.
Like, I didn't want Bryce to stay dead, but the stakes felt so low because she was really the only person that it was like, will she, won't she die?
Yeah.
But I know she's not going to.
Well, and I know there's more books and we wanted more for the other characters, but I feel like in Sarah's other books, there's still been something you had to lose.
Mm-hmm.
There's been characters that died needlessly. Right. So I don't know.
I'm thinking of one character in particular.
We're probably thinking of the same
Yeah.
character. I mean, Jespa does die, but she wanted to. So it's more of a happy moment, and I'm glad Lydia got her moment against Pollux because he deserved it.
And Rune getting to kill his father, although I did want more of an arc for the Autumn King. But, just my daddy issues. My mommy issues did love Sabine dying.
There you go.
So at least we got that.
We got one of those, 1 out of 2. Back to Bryce and the crossover. I know she hasn't read ACOTAR and doesn't know the characters like why we do. But opening the sarcophagus, stealing Truth Teller, and who knows what's going on at the prison now that she's awakened it or whatever. That's so much.
I do wonder if the prison has reacted to her magic like Avalon and what that means for Prythian.
I mean, is everybody released? Because if it's now
if it's like islands shifting and blooming.
Yeah, the islands are popping back up. Things are blooming. Like, does the prison get kind of pushed out?
I don't know.
That's terrifying for those in I guess we'll find out, I hope. That's terrifying for those in Prythian. Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's more Daglan.
I'd say my biggest complaint about the book is how easy some things were. Like everything is just kind of wrapped up in a magic translation being bow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even just to get her own wedding ring, Feyre had to go on a perilous journey to learn things. So, like, there should have been more journeys for Rhys to earn some of this. The knowledge, the magic, something. Mm-hmm. It all was kind of just handed to her and wrapped up very quickly so we could move on with the plot, which is, I don't know. I could have seen 2 books so that we could have learned more and had more.
Yeah, I don't want this to be like, I think it is kind of, I don't know if Rhys and Hunt will become like Feyre was in Silver Flames, where like it's more, she's mentioned in passing. She's not like a main character. But I don't love that was our goodbye, like our ending to the Bryce and Hunt story.
I'm still not over the fact that she was not fair to his trauma. He literally suffered in a dungeon while she was in the caves.
Well, he suffered in a dungeon, and there's also, the 200 years that he was kept prisoner.
But like it went unresolved. Like they kind of bickered with each other, and then they decided that they loved each other and they're going to put it in the past. I'm like, but it wasn't resolved.
Right.
And it's not okay.
There's still some big discussions that need to be had.
And I mean, if they get put in the back for the next book, like that was never resolved for me. I don't feel okay about their relationship and whatever, it just, I could use some more.
Right.
But I also did not see us going into space. That was weird.
Going to space in a Sarah J. Maas book, it's very like Muppets from Space, or that there was that Jason X movie where Jason Voorhees is in space. Like it just seems out of nowhere, and you're like, what are we doing?
I mean, like we're fans of urban fantasy settings, but black holes and mech suits in space.
It's just like I've said, so much of it felt too convenient. Like Bryce using the mask so easily, Hunt using the mask just because they swapped fluids, Hypaxia finding the antidote to a parasite that no one had so much as detected for 15,000 years, and she did it in like a day with Ethan's help. Yep. That's your assistant. The princes are just like glad that everything worked out. They're like, bye, like all in a day's work. And then there's the hologram. They're like, there was a hologram. And that's how we got the info, the lore dump. There were resurrections. Like, it was just all too convenient. Like, the inner circle had a harder time taking out Hybern than these 20-year-olds, like, had, intergalactic, this otherworldly species that had been running their planet for 15,000 years. It was harder to take down Hybern than to take down the Asteri.
I mean, the back and forth with Hybern was in multiple books, multiple battles. And this was like, we just walked in and had an answer.
Right.
It's kind of wild. We're supposed to believe also that the princes of hell risked themselves and their armies just because it was the right thing to do.
It's all too convenient. It's where are the brothers, the other princes of hell that are helping other worlds? Like, is one in Prythian? Could he be stalking more? Are we going to learn why dragon's fire is the only thing that can harm a prince of hell, and we were introduced to a dragon character?
I mean, the princes of hell used to be very scary and really bad characters. And so, like, okay, maybe they're not as evil as we thought, but that doesn't make them like perfect angels.
No, this was literally like just completely
180.
We're just glad to have helped. Fine. We're just gonna leave.
It's wild. It's too convenient again. And then we actually closed the gateway between the realms.
Completely
so we won't see
closed.
Them. Like, okay. But also, where's Ariadne? Where's Fury? What happened with her? She was such a big character before. The Viper Queen.
You go to war against intergalactic parasites and you don't take Fury with her. You leave her on an island that's already protected by the mist.
Yeah, there's already people there. Baxian's there handling it. She doesn't have to be there too.
No.
She's supposed to be like this really scary fighter persona
Mercenary.
that everybody's afraid of. Why is she not there on the front lines?
She's just like there with her girlfriend, her little dancing girlfriend.
I think Hunt's lineage was a bit of a letdown.
What was with all the third imagery?
But I don't think it makes sense either.
It doesn't.
Like you're sort of a test tube baby?
Demonic test tube baby.
Interesting.
So that's another thing. So we've talked about Hunt's trauma with the failed rebellion, and then him, having to be the Umbra Mortis, and then him being in a dungeon. There's also him finding out that he's a demonic test tube baby.
And he's to hunt demons.
Yeah, that he's just like having to process all of this as he goes.
But that's also another thing that goes back to the Princes of Hell. Like, Hunt used to hunt demons because they're bad. So, okay, maybe the princes aren't bad, but like the millions that live in your world are supposed to be okay now.
They did attack the city in the spring when the gates were opened, and I know that they like explained that away as
just their pets.
Yeah.
Okay, who are the rest of the people living there? Is it just you guys and all your pets? Like, I have more questions about Hell.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about Hell, but also Hypaxia. Like, her character, like Danica, turned into more of a plot device. Like, Hypaxia is to science what Deck is to computers.
Mm-hmm.
And we got no actual development in her character or her personality. Like, yeah, she's the head of the House of Flame and Shadow, but what was she thinking or feeling? You know, when all of that was happening, I don't know her.
Her people just turned on her, dumped her.
And that was another thing I hated. She just let the crown, the Cloudberry crown go.
Well, also her girlfriend, who she secretly loved, had done some terrible things, and she just walks away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she needs to be so much angrier for so many reasons, and they kind of, I don't know, they don't give her any depth on it.
Yeah.
We don't get enough about what she wants, what she needs.
I don't know if she'll play a big part in the next book, because she's close to Therion, and so maybe if he's the focus, she'll be in it more. But yeah, I don't know her.
It feels like she should be, because she's finding a cure for the parasite, and I hope that I'll give her some more development. I mean, maybe there's a chance for her and Celestina to make up.
I just don't care.
Yeah. Also,
unless her and Celestina go and murder Morganthia and take back the witches, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Celestina wasn't overly impressive either.
No.
Sigrid was a huge disappointment, and she's still lurking around, so that's great.
I did not see Sigrid's villain era coming, and I do have to imagine that she is going to play a big part in the next book. Like, she has a claim to the throne, or whatever you call it, the prime ship or whatever, but also so does Amelie.
Ooh, Ethan.
He's going to be fighting for his life in the next. He's been fighting for his life in every book, but in the next one, he's going to be fighting to stay in control.
He's going to have to figure his shit out. You know, like, yeah, he's prime now, but you're going to have to accept the responsibility, take charge of it. He's got a lot of growth still.
Absolutely. He should probably, like, take a class in leadership or something. Like,
literally
go to the local community college. Like, he
should probably learn how to do things for himself.
Right.
Since he had Jespa as his assistant.
Yeah, really. He was supposed to be the assistant, but then it ended up asking her for everything.
Constantly. I was like, what are you going to do for me?
It was just fuck up after fuck up for Ethan and Therion.
I mean, I was rooting for them by the end, but yeah, I'm going to need some growth out of them.
And this is like why Sarah is so good, is even if I was annoyed with them for 90% of the book, the way that it ended made me excited for the next one. Now I want to know what happens with Ethan and Perry, and how all the wolves respond to him being prime. Like, I want to know about Sathia, and I want to know about the potential love triangle.
Well, Therion seems to have, to an extent, finally like taken on something for himself. Mm-hmm. He stood up to the River Queen, but in a good way. So, like, I'm really curious to see where that's going to go for him. And
the Viper Queen still has a bounty on it. So, like, she let it go because his friends showed up, but...
Well, like, where does he live now?
Oh, he
what court are you in?
He accepted a job, I think, with
did you go with the Ocean Queen? Okay, I forgot.
But right. I don't know. I don't know where he's going to land.
Well, she's always out in the ocean. So, like, I guess technically nowhere, but that's somewhere.
Yeah.
A lot of follow-ups. I am excited for something other than whiny Sunball player and sad fish boy.
And I'm excited for the romance. I think there's a lot of potential for romance.
We love a good love triangle, which we're going to get with Sathia, Therion, and Colin.
But again, Sarah, like, why choose?
We're open.
You know, Hypaxia is going to save the day. Like, the way I see it happening is, you know, the Colin is unable to get out from under the Viper Queen, and Hypaxia is like, ooh, like, she has some test tubes, and she's like, and I have the antidote for the venom.
You know, during my lunch break, I worked this
right,
up.
exactly,
really easy and quick. But we do have an Ethan and Perry's potential storyline. They're clearly mates. They keep mentioning smell.
Right. I mean, since not brought up that much for them not to be mates, and I'm curious to see if there's going to be more mates now that once everyone takes the antidote, the Asteri are gone. Once they're rid of the parasite, do you think there are going to be more mates? Or do you think a lot of their mates are in Prythian because they're not supposed to be there? Like, is it possible that you're separated from your mate?
I think anything is possible. I think we will see a lot more mates in general because I bet the parasite has been dampening a lot of those natural magical ties. So I'm interested to see. I have expectations for more mates.
Well, and the fact that Thea and a prince of hell, they were mates. It's it's possible for it to cross worlds. So
it also don't have to cross species. Because I think that Bryce and Hunt are mates.
Well, now that the Asteria are gone, why can't they open gates between the worlds and travel?
I think they should. Maybe they have to get things a little more stabilized, but I can't imagine why the next time Bryce pops into Prythian. I mean, if I was Nesta, even if I was Rhys, he's being a bit of a brat, but I'd be like,
bitch,
take me with you. I want to see what you got.
Yeah,
there's a lot to learn.
Go vacation in Prythian.
Go vacation Prythian, but also go back, and they have so much more technology. You should look into that.
Oh yeah, you guys need some cell phone. Well, I don't know. They're not going to have electricity, so maybe they need to go to Prythian and learn how to live.
Well, you know what?
Without it,
everybody can figure out electricity together. I'm guessing a lot of the next book is going to be the politics of the new government. Like the archangels refusing to step down, nobility refusing to release slaves.
That first light grid that's going to be running out of power any minute now.
All that is important, but I'm hoping for more spice too.
The spice was not spicing in Flame and Shadow. It was like when white people put salt on chicken and call it spice. It was something, but it was not. It wasn't enough. I don't know. Well, it wasn't, especially after Silver Flames. That's the spice you're going to give me? All the underwear was too small for this?
That was weird. And I also don't feel like their relationship was resolved. So the spice for me, I was like, I still have a chip on my shoulder a little bit because we didn't work out our problems.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like coming home or saying bye or whatever.
Right.
But Lydia and Rune were the only sex scenes that they got me.
Every time we got Bryce and Hunt spice, something made me cringe. Like I just said, the underwear was all too small for this. There was always something that. Ugh.
Well, they also had to make it a big moment every time. Spice doesn't have to be pivotal. It could just be spicy. But there was always something to change the plot that happened.
Yes, and Bryce and Hunt's relationship, like I said, kind of just fell flat for me. And I think it did for a lot of people. There are still people out there holding out hope that Bryce's real mate is Azriel.
Why are we choosing? I mean, what if we have mates in different area codes? I'm okay with it.
I love that. You got to have your hoes in different area codes. Have your mates.
She's just hopping the worlds to check things out.
You could have, how there are men in the real world who have multiple families.
Yeah.
Think about if you could cross into another world.
Which she can.
World walk to all of your different guys.
She's too big to have just one mate. Maybe she needs her own harem. I'm just saying.
I would read it.
I would definitely be available to read that. But speaking of Az, I do hope we find out more about his lineage.
Az has to be a special bat boy. I don't know if he's going to be Starborn or descended from Enalius or something, but there's something. And I want Shadow Daddy spice. I don't care who it's with. Someone has to sit on Az's face and ride him into the sunset.
I really get some BDSM vibes from Az.
Yes, especially after learning that he's I
think she's going to be
likes.
Tied up with Shadows, and then she can ride his face.
I mean, someone needs to get tied up with Shadows.
Why
have Shadow Daddies if no one's getting tied up?
Sarah has let us know he's wild, so I think it's coming, and I am here for it.
I'm here for it.
It seems that he's open to a mating bond, especially after seeing Rhys and Feyre and Cass and Nesta.
I mean, Az spent 500 years simping for Mor.
Yikes.
Let's see his slut era.
He was still hitting it elsewhere, though. So.
He was, but we didn't get to hear about it. So, I would read how there are novellas. It's I want to know the prequel to this war. And I'm I want to hear about sexcapades, Az's sexcapades. I don't need any context.
I would be happy to hear about when the Bat Boys were all hooking up in the same room. I think
that's
naughty.
Hear about that.
I don't care that they're young and horny. I want to hear more. I mean, anyway. Well, I can't wait. I wonder if Mor was always going to be a queer character or if Sarah added that because of her lack of diversity backlash.
I mean, if it were going to happen with Az and Mor, it would have happened by now. So I know that there are some people who think that they're still going to be a thing, but
oh no,
I don't see that.
No, sweetie.
Speaking of Mor, I want to know what happened with Eris. There's more to that story and to him as a character. And maybe that's just my internalized misogyny. I'm always looking for the good in men and the bad in women, but it just feels like there has to be more to Eris as a character and more to that story.
I mean, he's kind of like Cormac. He's played the game, but I think he's been doing what he has to, and whatever he can along the way.
Well, in the Eris Mor timeline is weird. If you do the math, he was like 10 when everything went down.
Ooh, yeah, that math isn't mathing.
No, it definitely changes things if you the new perspective of that story of him being a literal child bridegroom.
I just don't want it to be Az expecting the third sister just because the cauldron gave his brothers Feyre and Nesta.
Right. I need more development between Elain and either Azriel and or Elucien before I join the ship battles. Because right now, yeah, there are little secret smiles and, gifts that make sense. But right now, I don't see her with anyone that I'm like, oh, this is undeniable.
But that's also Azriel is beautiful and he's kind. I mean, maybe Elaine's a secret freak we just don't know about either.
It is always the quiet ones.
I mean, it makes me think of 50 Shades.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what's coming.
Right.
As long as there's spice, I will read it. I don't care who it is.
We don't care who. Why choose?
Right. Outside of the romance, I expect that Koschei is going to play a major role in ACOTAR 5.
That, more Illyrian lore, Az's lineage, possible connections to Starborn, Fae, and/or Enalius, other monsters hidden around the under the mountains of Prythian, whatever or whomever Nesta felt at the pass of Enalius, the beasts that are carved in the hewn city, and the ones shown to Nesta by Lanthus, Rhys's beast mode, kind of looking like a dragon, the potential of a prince of hell being in Prythian. There's a lot that could happen in this book.
I mean, those were all sort of touched on a bit in Crescent City too. Especially Rhys's beast mode, we're seeing more of the beasts. And then Vesperus was very clear that there's more of them around Prythian.
Right.
So somebody is going to come to light, especially.
Well, in Truth Teller, speaking of Vesperus, she, kind of has this line of thought of, you don't actually know how to use Truth Teller. I'm like, what else is there to Truth Teller?
Yeah, what does that mean?
That we don't know about.
Excuse me.
Because he's like, I stab.
I'm really good at this. I mean, it's that. And of course, we don't know what's happening with the prison either. Did everybody just get freed? Do we need to be terrified about who's been in there for 15,000 years?
Exactly. Yeah, there are people monsters that we haven't even met that have been in there. They were put there by Selene.
Yeah. I mean, also the princes of hell are allegedly in other worlds. So, as you were saying, that could be something. More at one point mentions being watched by something.
Well, and now Nesta has the Star Sword. Az is hopefully going to learn everything that Truth Teller is capable of other than stabbing people. They have the ability. Think about it, they now have the ability in Prythian to create black holes. They have what they need.
They don't know how to close it, but there is an opportunity. I mean, maybe that's how they get rid of Koschei.
Maybe Nesta throws Rhys into a black hole and declares herself High Queen.
I don't know. At this point, I used to love Rhys, but sometimes you do what you got to do. Someone needs to humble that man, though. Right. There's also the newly awakened Prison Island.
And there's side-eyeing Amren after learning the prison's timeline from Selene. Things are not quite adding up.
Amren was very sus in this book.
Well, why does she know the language from the home world of the Asteri, who may or may not be from the home world of the Vogue?
Also, when exactly were you imprisoned? I just
right.
What was that?
We also need to find out why Nesta is so connected to the 8-pointed star. Could there be world walking in the next ACOTAR book? I
hope so. This just opened up a whole new area of interest.
Right.
I also want more Valkyries.
I want Nesta. I think if I needed to choose a direction for her storyline, it would be her taking over the Dusk Court and making it a safe place for Illyrian women and then the Valkyries.
I cannot tell you how much I love that.
Right?
I really hope that comes to pass because it's probably huge now. I bet a bunch of islands came out of nowhere.
It'll be gorgeous. It'll be blooming with life now that the magic is back. Maybe there'll be Pegasi running around.
Maybe there'll be a protective barrier like there is.
The mist.
Yeah, like the mist in Avalon. So they could all be very safe. I love that idea.
I know.
It's like the Amazons. No males allowed.
No males allowed. They could put little signs up.
You can be around, but only where I put you.
Well, and if you think about it, if the Pegasus I keep messing that up. If the Pegasi were to come back, the Valkyries could ride them like Norse mythology. Like that's how they're always depicted. And we also have hints of an inner circle betrayal. There's someone that's been feeding information. There's a lot of potential storylines that are very exciting.
Yes. And the potential 4th series, Twilight of the Gods, which I'm hoping will be more connected to Throne of Glass.
At the very least, someone has to be confirmed Vogue.
Yeah.
Rhys, Vesperus, the Viper Queen, the Princes of Hell, like someone. There just been so many little breadcrumbs of dark blood and world walking and like coming from a world that sounds a lot like the world that Maeve described. There's just too much.
I mean, my money is probably on the princes, especially after that comparison to the Callers, but also the little glimpse we saw of hell was just darkness.
And it was empty. What was that about?
Well, I mean, I guess technically they were like in a pocket of hell where like the rest of hell, they couldn't actually see into hell, but it's still with the darkness. I'm like, just feels very similar to the homeworld of the Vogue.
Right. It does. I mean, all that to be said, there's a lot to look forward to in the next Crescent City and the next ACOTAR books.
Sarah knows how to keep us interested.
And I'd love to hear what everyone else thought about Flame and Shadow. Like, our love language is venting. And I hope it doesn't come across as like that we like negative or that we hated it, because we loved it. I loved the series. Sarah is at the top of the genre. She's at the top of her game. But I do, like DM me on Instagram or email us dtfapodcast@gmail.com and just let me know what you thought about it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I second what Kate said. Really, really enjoyed reading this series. She opened up so many more questions for me, which I guess is also kind of fun to sit and speculate. We sound like we're venting, but we just have questions.
We have a lot of questions. We are very opinionated.
But we do want to know more. We're always open to new opinions and to hear more.
Well, and it makes me wonder, there was that whole, I don't know if it was a rumor or if it was something that was actually confirmed, that Sarah wrote all of Flame and Shadow, tossed it, and then rewrote it, because I'm like, what was in that first one?
Oh.
Have I said that before? I can't remember. But
I don't know that.
I've heard that happened. And I don't know if that would have been her publisher asking her to rewrite it, or like she wrote it and was like, well, and just redid it. But yeah.
Yeah. You may have said that before. It's vaguely familiar, but I forgot. I don't know. That's wild.
We need to start. Where does she live? We'll go through her trash.
Honestly, I'm probably happier not knowing the original, because maybe she killed off some characters and was like, wait.
I would be
Let
okay.
me adjust this storyline.
I guess it would depend. Like, if I'd be devastated if we lost like Lydia.
It depends on the characters or how they were before.
Yeah.
Well, you guys make sure you read Bride next week. It's going to be our Spicy Girls Book Club inaugural episode. It's Bride by Ali Hazelwood.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, y'all.